everybody, and welcome to Crowd Surfing. Today is September 19th, 2018. I just got back from Iceland last night, so I'm just glad to be here talking about Kickstarters. And you can always tell like the waves and ebbs of Kickstarter, and of course there's more stuff going on. If you have stuff to say or comment on, if you happen to watch us live, you might mention it. I won't always respond, but if I see something here interesting, we're certainly open to talking back and forth to you. Remember, the only person who's really live here is myself. All the contributors have already been pre-recorded, so keep that in mind. But of course, the most interesting thing, well, maybe not, but for me it's interesting, is the news, so let's get started with that. Alrighty, so here we go, taking a look at the news. We're going to just jump into a game that I feel is going to be pretty cool, and that is Football Highlights 2052, Mike Fitzgerald's new card game. Really, I want to smack some of these Kickstarter. Just call it Football Highlights 2052. Why is it? Anyway, so Baseball Highlights 2045 is a very popular deck builder game from Mike Fitzgerald, and so this is the sequel of sorts to it. It's football. You can play it solo, 2 or 4 players. I'm certainly interested in this. I think that Cybermen playing baseball would be slightly skewed towards them maybe, but football seems even more so. But you can see here, you get the 95 card play deck, and if it's anything like the other one, you'll be able to add more cards to it. They don't actually talk as much about the game itself, but they sure show all these promo cards and things. Lots and lots of promo cards. And so you can go in here, and Mark Street obviously was recording and talking about some of the stuff here. So I'm very curious about it. I'm sure people will like it. Football games tend to not sell very well, so there is that. So who knows? All right, next we have Beatdown Streets of Justice from Matt Barr. This is the first one he created. I am not impressed with this artwork here. This looks like, I don't know, this just looks, you're a hero going around and fighting on the street. This whole Street Fighter thing seems to be overdone. But this one, well, it's not funded yet. It only has 4 days. But it might fund, but it says a 9.0 average on Board Game Geek, which I suspect is because not a ton of people have backed it. All right. Let's see here. War Titans Invaders Must Die. Now this one's interesting to me because, first of all, the core box is only 40 pounds. And 60 pounds, I guess, if you want extra stuff, and then if you want miniatures. But this has some really neat, looks like robot versus robot. I really like the art in this game. This guy right here, it looks like a Transformer, this red, white, and blue guy here, or Voltron and stuff, but the monsters, they all look pretty interesting too. I really like the artwork. In fact, this one was almost a disappointment by the time I got down to the miniatures, because the miniatures are cool, but the artwork just looked really cool. I'm sure if these miniatures are painted, they look fantastic. So robot versus robot, I'm always certainly a fan of that sort of thing. Looks very anime, very manga style. And I think, is this their first one? Let's take a look at the top. No, this is their third one. They've done War Titans Invaders Must Die before it was canceled, and then it didn't fund, and now it's funding. But it looks a whole lot better than it did the first time. All right, next is, I almost picked this one for Pick of the Week. And this is Babil, Welcome to Neighborhood. And the reason, it's a weird name, but the reason I liked it, it just looks so clean and nice and small. Just from the cover to the laying down, the tiles here, the project cards, looks like a little tiling game, and I kind of like the little orky artwork, and these orcs here are making some pretty big bug eyes. And it doesn't look like it's a big game, it looks like it's a small little game, but it just looks, I don't know, I like the idea of this one, of building down a town of cards and then putting people in them. So I have high hopes for this one. I think this is a first time one. Kickstarter, yeah, it's the first created by Meridiano 6, but it looks interesting enough, and I would like to try this one. All right, Warfighter Modern Wave 3 Shadow War. This is not one that I'm really interested in. This one here is from DVG Games, and they make heavier war games. I played a few of them. They're not necessarily my style. This one here, I'm not a big fan of the artwork on these cards because it looks like they have some live. It looks like they got some people here, you know, some actual Marines or whatever, people dressed up. I don't know, it looks like they're cutouts and put on here. But again, it's a warfighter box game, so if you like this sort of thing, and there is a lot of cards, and this is one of the more modern war game companies. All right, For the Love of Board Games, a book for board gamers. This one's really blowing up, from Erin Dean. And this is a book where she's interviewed a lot of designers, a lot of different people. Erin interviewed me and Sam, I want to say 2 years ago. And so here she's now gone and done a whole bunch of great designers. I mean, look at this list. That's a huge list of people that she's designed. Some great artwork here. Each of the designers, there's a picture of, that's Jonathan Gilmour from Dead of Winter. There's Rainer Knizia, who looks like he's wearing a pot on his head. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but I do like the artwork on this one a lot, and she did a really good job. She made a video, it shows it right here, the Board Game Boom documentary, which has gotten a lot of views. She's also social media for Lucky Duck Games, and so she knows what she's talking about. So putting this together into a book, this is certainly one. I might actually back this one myself. I'm very interested to see the final thing. All right, No Escape from Games. This is their second time funding this. See, first time 48% funded. Can you escape Titan Station? This is one, I love this quote here. A never-ending hallway of disasters waiting for you. I really like this game. If they didn't put that quote, I really like this game, then that would have been a very different way, like a disaster is waiting for you. But you're in a disaster. I'm not so keen on the graphic design of this. It looks a little boring. I mean, it looks nice and easy to figure out how to move these people. You can see the person moving around here on the board, but I don't know. It looks okay, and it's funding, but barely. Then we have the North Sea Epilogues RPG plus Raiders playmat. Now this is an RPG. I don't normally talk about RPGs, but this is an RPG based on a book. You know, the North Sea, Raiders of the North Sea, Shipwrights of the North Sea, etc. I guess you want to play a Vikings RPG, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, a lot of people are liking it. I'm not so keen on this gameplay example that they have here, because they talk about the games, the player doing half the work for the game. And I found that doesn't always work really well. The GM says, okay, you rolled a 7, what happened? And then you explain what happened, but usually a game runs really well with a good dungeon master with the storytelling. If everyone at the table is good at storytelling, then the players can join in, but that doesn't always, I don't know, maybe I'm just being cynical. All right, Machina Arcana from Beyond. Well, this one's doing really well. I wonder why it's doing so well. It doesn't look that fantastic. I see items and boards and stuff, premium game, and maybe this is based on something else. But Mark has previewed it, so he's in chat, so you can ask him what he thinks of it. It's this says a surreal orgy inspired by Hellraiser, Geiger, Belsinki, Cronenberg, and The Thing with occult undertones. I'm out. But, I mean, it's raised, what, $177,000, so it's a cooperative steampunk horror game. I think Z likes that because he likes steampunk and he likes horror. All right, let's get off that. Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game. 1.1 million, that's a lot. Why is this game doing so well? Well, it's based on Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's from Steamforged Games. Steamforged Games are the folks who made the wonderful Dark Souls, the board game. By wonderful, I mean it was awful. I haven't played the Resident Evil game, and God Tier. I don't know if God Tier is out yet, but obviously they're very good at miniatures. If you slide down here, look how fat that box is. That box is humongous. It's like a cube. But the miniatures for this game look fantastic. Of course, the miniatures for Dark Souls also look fantastic, and it was a really bad game. I really like how this looks, but I have to be honest, I don't expect much from it. So I might be wrong, but bleh. But I get it. People are going to back it. Why? Because it's based on a popular IP. All right, now we got Arthur, the first expansion for Merlin. This one looks like it's not going to fund. It's really low. That's because everyone knows by now that if you don't back a Queen game, you can buy it later on. This will probably be out at Essen. Now, Merlin is a fun game and an expansion for it with some Queenies. By the way, Queenie is just Queen Games term for they're tiny little expansions that you can get. They make a ton of them. They're like promos. And hey, you can get a bundle offer and get all these other games. So adding more stuff, adding another rondelle in the middle, a King Arthur pawn, some Arthur boards and stuff. Yeah, sure. I'm interested in more stuff for Merlin. I think it's a good game. All right, jumping into painted character meeples for viticulture in Tuscany. Now, I was very interested in this because I like painted character meeples for viticulture in Tuscany. My biggest problem with this one is probably the price. It's $45 for 37 pieces. That means you are paying $1.25 essentially per mini. Now, they look great. I mean, look at them. They look fantastic. The 51 piece is $60. I guess that's a slightly better deal. And then a 9-piece set of Tuscany Special Worker promo cards. They're specially done by Jamie Stegmaier to be added to Tuscany. So that's kind of a, you have to get them from them to get these. This looks great. I would use these in my game. I may hunt them down and get them in my game, but I'm going to grit my teeth when I pay $45 for that, because that's pretty much how much viticulture costs. But that's how much Meeple Source charges for stuff. All right, Rampage Dungeon, seamless interlocking dungeon tiles. Forgive me, I just want to look at these for a while because, ooh, look at that. Now, I'm curious because the dungeon tiles I have, you can throw at the wall and they won't break. I don't know if these do. I do like the fact that these interlock like this. That looks really cool. And this one's on here just because I want to look at it. All right, let's see. Urban Insanity, the game where the board changes every time you play. What? That's new and unique. I've never seen a Catan game where the board changes each time you play, but whatever. Urban Insanity, the name isn't bad, and the box and the bright colors look good, but then I look at this and it looks like a prototype. That literally looks like a prototype with roads and meeples around the thing. So, is this their first game that these have done? Yeah, by X-Tile Games. Maybe it's good. Maybe I'll enjoy it. The tile tower, and you know, it has a good look to it box-wise. But then when you look at the board itself, and aliens and mobsters, and all that sounds fun, but I just can't get over the look. Maybe I will when it actually comes out. Maybe they'll make it look better. Dark Domains. You seek the favor of the ancient necromancer. However, there can only be one, the follower with the most darkness in their heart. 72,000. Is this based on another property? I don't know. But it's... People really like necromancers. I will say these spell cards here look really fantastic. This is a really nice... I think they look great. The monster tiles, I mean, the art in this game I don't think is bad. Maybe that's what it is. People like the way it looks, but I want to know, is the game itself good? And here's some explanations of how to play it and all. All right, Microbrew, a full-size board game in a tiny tin. Yay, more little tiny tin games. This one was... this is from One Free Elephant. He did Orsum. I still hate that name. And Carcosa. So Microbrew is their third game. This won a contest that was run by one of the judges was the guy who made Mintworks. And is it right here? Yeah, look at this little animation. I love this because this shows you how to fit all the pieces into the tin. You have to put them in a very specific way. This is a very gratifying little flash animation to watch to put these all in. But this just bugs me that you have to go to this much effort just to shove everything in. I'd rather the box be a little bit bigger. But hey, whatever. Microbrew, I'm sure this one, I think it's doing really well here, right? 55,000, 1,800 backers is the bigger thing. All right, Summoner Isle board game. I'm not a big fan of these dragon silhouettes, but some people will probably like those. The board itself looks pretty cool, but this kind of looks like a 1980s style game with the stats in each of the monsters' corners. You have worms, trolls, and sprites. Looks like an older war game. Lots and lots of stretch goals. The dice look okay. It's more than just gaming, says it's good. I haven't even heard of any of these board meetings. It's more than just gaming. Board's Eye View, Monkeys with Fire. Huh, I haven't heard of most of those publishers, but looks interesting. Oh wait, I think I saw this at a convention. Okay, that wasn't very useful. The next one is one I'm really interested in. This is Zero Gravity, but I wonder if this one's going to fund, because it has 12 days to go and it's still 64, it's not even halfway yet. District Games did Zero Gravity before, was 179,000% funded, but then it was canceled, which is always kind of a red flag to a lot of people. It certainly is a red flag to me. But if you notice that you're running around in a circle, now this is a gimmick, of course. You could just put the board down and say it wraps. But magnetic pieces hanging off the ceiling is a neat idea, and I want to play it just for that. So it's definitely a gimmick that has me. And if you can pick up the board and rotate it and move it around, and look at that, a samurai on wheels. Come on. But I am a little concerned that this one won't back. The Milwaukee Eagles. Up here we have the Moscow Jackals and Beasts. But they're all different magnets with dice and stuff. All right, well, I hope it funds. Here we have Robin Hood from Worthington Publishing. Worthington Publishing does a lot of war games, lighter war games. This one's not doing well, and I'm going to go by the cover. I don't know what it is. I know that that's lighting there and the trees and all, but that cover just doesn't, I don't know. Maybe it's me. But yeah, look at the cover with this font. This looks like a prototype. Now these are little, this is like a war game. If you look right here, you'll see Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham and all them. But Robin Hood was never a war game. Robin Hood was about a bunch of guys who came out and snuck out and did dastardly deeds. So I don't know what they're doing here. And I'm sure it's going to be, hey, they can sneak out and do stuff and the sheriff have to go in and capture them, but we'll see. Doesn't seem to be doing too well right now. All right, Z War 1 Exodus. This is from Dice Sports. This is another one of those Z ones. I was really impressed looking at this ship here until I got down here and realized that this is just basically print and play terrain. So that's like paper that you're folding, which is a lot less exciting when you look at it that way. It does look good from a distance. Lots of miniatures, more zombies, blah, 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 blah. But lots of good reviews, so... Are we not done with zombies yet? All right, I'm done with zombies right now. Let's jump over here. Whoo, this one's exciting. Dale of Merchants Collection. Dale of Merchants is a deck building game, which is pretty neat. And they have Dale of Merchants 1 and Dale of Merchants 2. They're essentially the same game. But you can mix them together and there's 8 animals in each one. This introduces 8 new animal folk decks, and then down here is a box where you can put everything in, which is great because Dale Merchants was a small one. Dale Merchants is a really good game. This is one you definitely should consider backing. I like this this deck builder a lot, and this Kickstarter, I like the artwork. I think this is great. This is really neat. And then the last one, and this is my pick of the week, Diffusion Dice from Roll4 Initiative. Now, what are diffusion dice? You know, I asked them that because these guys were at Gen Con, so I asked them what diffusion dice were, and they did not show me this video. But what diffusion dice are, essentially, it's like a clear die, and then you take a drop of color and you put it in, and it kind of diffuses throughout the die, and then gives it a nice translucent, really cool effect. I liked it so much that I ended up getting a bunch of them. I think I stuck them in my tumbling dice set. But you can see the different colors here, Bloodstone, Cherry Blossom. Today actually showed the dice. Look how pretty these dice look. Yes, I know I should have picked a game for Game of the Week. Dice being a Game of the Week is probably not a good idea, but these look great, and they look even better in person. I think I got one of each color at Gen Con. I can't remember exactly what I did, and they got these dual color ones coming, which I'm pretty pumped about. Rainbow, I mean, look at that. They're just fantastic. I love dice, so I'm definitely a sucker for this, but I saw these in person, and they're some of the nicest dice that I've ever seen. All right, well, that is the news. So some people said, hey, how comes you haven't talked about, whatever project? I only ever talk about projects that are ending in the next 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we'll be back with another live show, and I'll talk about more projects then. But meanwhile, let's listen to the man in the hat.
Hey folks, and welcome to another FOMO, the segment where I take a look at a game that's seeking crowdfunding right now, and maybe I haven't decided if I have a fear of missing out on it, and maybe you're in the same boat. Well, today we're going to take a look at Artemis Project. The Artemis Project is a game for 2 to 5 players where you're trying to build the most successful colony on the moon of Europa. Players must harvest resources, construct buildings, gain new colonists, and train them as well. The game is played over 6 rounds. At the start of each round, a setup phase happens where new resources, buildings, and colonists are made available. In addition, a new event is revealed. The event deck also serves as the timer for the game. During the placement phase, all players roll their dice to create a pool from which they will spend placing dice on the various locations. Locations on the board are the hangars, where players take on new expeditions, the vents, where you will gain energy, the quarry gains minerals that are used in constructing buildings, the gantry, allowing players to bid on buildings they wish to construct, the doorstep is where players recruit incoming colonists, the academy allows you to train your colonists for other roles, and the outfitter, where you gain tools that allow you to change your dice values. Each location has different rules for placement of the dice, such as the vents, where placing a dice means that placing lower dice will move you higher in the line for collecting energy, but higher values will allow you to harvest more energy, providing there is still some left when it's your turn to harvest. After all dice have been placed, then begins the resolution phase. The locations are resolved in the same order I just showed them according to the rules of that location. An interesting one being the first location of the hangars. In this location, the combined total of players' dice on the expedition card must meet or exceed the value listed, and all players present gain a badge. The player with the highest value of dice, though, gets the top reward printed, and the second player will get the lowest reward. Failed rewards during the resolution phase will still gain relief for the player by moving them along the relief track, so they still get a little assistance. After all locations are resolved, players then complete an upkeep phase where they activate staffed buildings, pay for energy for colonists they have, and prepare for the next round. After 6 rounds, players complete some final endgame scoring, and whoever has the most points is the winner. So that's an overview of the Artemis Project. Now, what you saw there was a prototype copy, and as such may not fully represent what you get if you back the game, but it is pretty close. Now, a quick story about this game. I first saw this game at Gen Con this year. I put out a call to publishers if anyone wanted to show me something they thought I might be interested in to show you folks on FOMO, and this was one of them. Mark from Grand Gamers Guild reached out to me, and you know what? From the moment I walked up to the booth and I took a look at the game, even before I had any idea how the game played, I instantly was roped in and wanted to know more about this game. The theme drew me in. I still didn't actually know how it played by the time we got done talking. I had a general idea, but once I got a copy of it and I started playing it, I fell in love with it. This is a Euro-style game, but this has the dice in it. And honestly, each of those little locations almost feels like a little mini game, and I really, really love that. I love how every dice that I put out has meaningful decisions, and I really, really love the expeditions because that one feels like you're having to work together, because if there's not enough pips there, then the expedition fails. But even if the expedition is successful, the person who has the most pip values is going to get the lion's share of rewards. So I really enjoyed that about this game. I enjoyed the fact that I still had to take care of my colonists, and so everything in this game just flowed really well. The events are a nice timer for the game, but they also change up each round, so things feel a little different from round to round. The game plays in right about the right amount of time, and just overall, I was really enamored with this game. Artwork, theme, mechanisms, everything was dead solid for me. So for me, this is going to be an instant FOMO and an instant back. I hope this has given you some idea whether or not it might be a good game for you. If so, go check out their Kickstarter page, and I look forward to seeing you folks next episode.
Hey board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back with another episode of Crowd Surfing Lining Up. That's right, I'm bringing you projects that won't break your bank, but throw in a little something extra. Here's what I'm checking out this week. Jiminis is a 2 to 4 player family style game with a surprising amount of strategy. It's a brand new game from Social Sloth, an imprint of Grey Fox Games. Here's a disclaimer, I did volunteer for Grey Fox at Gen Con this year on their demo team, but I've never played Jiminis until this week. It's out on Kickstarter right now. Note, these are just printouts of prototype materials. They're not even close to the final artwork. I'll show you some examples of the project after the gameplay. Here's how you play. Players will control these little chicken pawns, and they're going to move the chicken pawns around the farmyard, gathering up the gem grains. The gem grains are a bunch of different colors, and if they can place the gem grains onto their little Fabergé-style eggs, they can score points by completing these patterns. It doesn't hurt them if they don't complete the pattern, they just don't score any points. They can use the pink ones. They're wild. They can be placed in combination with the other colors to complete the feature. But they cost you 2 points every time you use them. If you don't use them and you put them on the side, they're worth +1 because they are wild. Game is played over 3 rounds, and during each round, 3 things are going to happen. First, the farmer is going to lay out some gem grains. And that's easy. They're going to roll 3 dice, and using the numbers on those dice, they'll actually put them on the columns in the matching numbers. Then we'll roll the other 3 dice and place them on the bottom. Wherever we see a connection, in other words, an intersection between them, we're going to put a random gem on those connections and fill them up real quick there. All right, we've got our gems all lined up. Now the chickens are ready to roll. The chickens each have 8 dice, and each player at the exact same time, of course I'm only one player here, but at the exact same time they'll roll all 8 of those dice, and using those dice, they're going to place them into these action squares. They can re-roll them as many times as they want, so long as they haven't locked them onto the action squares. Each of the action squares does something a little different. The 1s, 2, and 3s control the chicken pawns. You can burn those dice to move the chickens around. Any excess doesn't count, so you can strategically move to the end of the board by using up some of your your movement. The 4s and 5s will let you add more gem grains to the farm. How do they do that? You'll just, let's say this one was a 4, you'll just pick any row or column that hasn't been used. Let's say we want to take this column. We'll put it here. It doesn't have to match the number. I'm just putting it there. And they can place a gem random out of the bag onto any slot that already has a dice on the left-hand side, including some of these little action dice. Same thing with the rows. If you did that, it just has to match up, or intersect, with one of these. So you could place it here, for instance. All right, the last spot is the 6. And the 6 is determining the pecking order. Depending on the amount of dice you have in there, let's say you have 2 6s here, and the green on this side only has 1 6. Then each player would roll their dice to determine the playing order. All right, blue rolled a 7, green rolled a 5. That means blue gets the first player token and gets to go first during their turn. They'll place their dice back into the appropriate spot, and those will be used as action dice. If they had re-rolled a 6, the 6 would become wild and they can use any of those spaces. Next up, starting in player turn order, determined by the first player token after that pecking order re-roll. Each player will take 1 turn, burning each one of the dice to move the chickens around or throw out more chickens by scratching the dirt and getting more, the gems, scratching the dirt and getting more gem grains. As they go around, if they land on a specific space so they got to come out of these little 4 ramp space areas. As they come out of this ramp space area, if they land on a specific space that has a gem, they got to land on it during their turn. They take the gem and move it onto the board. And this is where the strategy comes in. Where do they place it? Do they put it on a 2 or a 3, a 4, or a 5? They got to think in terms of the number of different gems that are available in the random bag versus the points that they could score, knowing that after 3 rounds, if they don't complete that pattern, they won't score those points. All right? At the end of each turn, when all of the action dice are placed, we'll take all the dice off the board. We'll leave the gem grains that haven't been touched. They'll go out for the next round. The chickens will go back to roost inside the barn. The farmer will move down to the next one, which will decrease the amount of gem grains that will be placed out. We'll play those 3 rounds, continue placing them on the Fabergé-style eggs, and at the end of 3 turns, at the end of 3 rounds, we'll count up the completed patterns, subtract for any imperfections used, bonus points for any wilds that you didn't use, and the player with the most amount of points wins the game. Let's talk about the pledge levels. For $29 plus $5 shipping to the United States, you get everything you see here. Get some beautiful artwork on the farm board, 4 egg boards in the appropriate colors, each with those Fabergé-style eggs with the patterns that you're going to try to complete, a little cheat sheet with the scoring tables for each player, the action boards, of course. You'll get an egg timer, some action dice, 8 in each color, and you'll also get plenty of gems in all the different colors to play, plus some exclusives. A little bit of lanyap, an embroidered bag, and 2 power cluck cards. It's kind of an advanced way to play the game with some extra powers. Hey, so that's Gem Hens out on Kickstarter right now from Social Sloth Games. $29 will get you the game, plus $5 shipping, and there's that lanyap, those embroidered bags, and the extra power cards. Gem Hens is out on Kickstarter for only a couple of more days, so make sure you check it out pretty quick. And until next time, laissez le bon temps rouler.
Hi, my name is Jeremy from Jiminis Plays Games, and I'm here today to take a look at 3 games that were once on Kickstarter and they are now either right at retail or they are coming to retail very soon. It's always important to know, hey, did you really miss out on something on Kickstarter, or are these games just a lot of hype that you threw your money at a year ago? Well, for the people who haven't backed it, I just want to tell you what's up on a couple smaller, lesser known games, and that's Archmage, Sailing Towards Osiris, and Shifting Realms. I'm going to give you a quick little shot of each one, and hopefully I help you make an informed decision. So we're taking a quick look at Shifting Realms by Soaring Rhino, and the reason why I like this game so much is because it has a whole bunch of replayability, because you can switch out each one of these 5 realms that are on here. Now, I don't have all 5 out here, but I have 3 of them, and each one of them has their own set of objectives, story cards, and ways to interact when you gather resources and create buildings. For example, over here you have the pirates. So if players over here, they're trying to take these pirates and go on voyages to end the objectives for that. You have the set of story cards that you have for the I think they're called the Ahana, and you go through their story and try to create dominance. And then you also have the dwarves over here who have to deal with this dragon that can move across the board and stomp some of your scouts and guardians and destroy their resources or take them out. Now, a couple other that you can sniff in here. You have the Troll King that you have to take out on this board to end the objectives, and then you also have this one right here, which is the Elfim, which these are elves and they're trying to rebuild their castles and things like that. Very fun game. 60 to 70 minutes. You can switch things in and out, and the way the boards interact make the gameplay different every time. One of my favorite games of this year, Shifting Realms by Soaring Rhino. Give that one a look. And now we move on to Sailing Towards Osiris. Next up is Sailing Towards Osiris by Daily Magic Games, and what they're most known for, at least for me, is wonderful streamlined games with fantastic artwork and great components. Actually, they even go one step further. They have great inserts too. But let's get to the gameplay. In this game, you actually have the pharaoh who is dying, and the barge is traveling through here. The game is played over 4 rounds, and what players are trying to do is place laborers on here and gather resources and also build monuments. What players want to do is build consecutive monuments like this right here. You have 3 in a row of the same, and you score a multiplier of points. Also, there's some really cool elements to the game where you can go to cities and gather resources. And of course, once you see here, they have great iconography. It's very easy to play. And then you have a little bit of a barter thing. So players can also barter for cards. There's also these raw cards that they're kind of like boon cards that break rules in the game. Just an overall fun experience. You got a lot to do, beautiful artwork, streamlined game, even a finite amount of resources, which makes the game even harder to deal with. And that, once again, is Sailing Towards Osiris by Daily Magic Games. Love this one here. Archmage by Starling Games is a resource management area control game where players are competing mages, going across the land, going to camps to recruit people, and gathering resources as they hit certain spaces to give offerings to these gods in the middle of the board, these mystics. And then also you have these outright hybrids here that basically can initiate and promote your acolytes. Now, the coolest part of this game is actually the magic cards. There are 18 spells in this game, and how you build them is according to this little spectrum-based map. What happens is these people fight, and then they become one. So these 2 guys fight, and then they become one. And because you do that, you unlock higher spells. The interesting part is how you manage these, because you lose those 2 spells on those tiers. And eventually what you get is these 2 mages fighting again, or acolyte followers, and then you ultimately get a huge spell that can change the course of the game. Some of these are traveling around the board, some of them mess with other people's boards. There's plenty of spells to go around. It's a super fun game, and it also has a solo mode, and this is one of my favorite games of the year. That is Archmage by Starling Games. All right, I'm back, party people. Thank you for taking a look with me at these 3 games that are coming to retail soon, or actually at retail right now. If you would like to find me on the Facebooks, I am in Board Game Revolution, where I do a live show, and I also have a blog called JimeliaPlaysGames.com.
Hey, we're about to go into the Essen season, which is October, right? It's all about Essen and the big game fair and all the games that are going to be released at Essen. There's more games released at Essen than any other time of the year. There's also a lot of games released at Gen Con. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Actually, I think it came up at our Q&A that we did in Iceland. And I have to say, it's interesting to me about Kickstarters versus conventions, and how I know more about a lot of Kickstarter games than I know about games that are coming out at conventions. And why is that? And the reason that is because when you go to a Kickstarter page and you want to learn about the Kickstarters that are out on that page, you know, oh, I want to learn about this Kickstarter. They have a video that explains the game. Boom. Then they have the rules. Then they have a bunch of previews of the game. Then they have flash animations that show how to play the game. Then they show all the pieces of that game. And when company Big Shot A says, we got a new game coming out of Essen, here's a picture of the game box and here's a short description of it, and they move on. And I almost wish they would just take a page from these Kickstarter guys. I don't know that I need to be flooded with every single detail, but the Kickstarter folks are making all this information available because they want you to back the game. But wouldn't you be a lot more excited about some of these games at Essen if you could see the components and stuff? And they could even do this even better because they know what the final product's going to look like at this point before Essen comes up. So why can't I see like an Essen preview page where I go to the game and they show there's some reviews of the game, early reviews of the game, and there's things. Why not treat a release of a game like a Kickstarter? Because if you do that, if you give out this information, and again, someone in the comments mentions they don't like they don't trust the reviews because they're paid stuff. It doesn't matter whether you trust them or not. They give you a lot of information. And I can form my own opinion on Kickstarters because I have so much information to go on. I don't have that kind of information. I just go to a convention like, here's a new hot game. Get it. It's hot. Great. What's in the box? What's there? And you don't see it till you get to the convention. And I wonder if some companies would have a better launch, a better whole thing at a convention if they build up a page like Kickstarter that showed the game off in detail. Some companies do, but most companies don't. And I just think that publishers at conventions could take a page from Kickstarter's book and show off and give more information out ahead of time, because I really think that would help with sales of their games. All right, let's keep moving on.
This is Jamie with Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about backer engagement, how to engage with your backers. When I launched my viticulture campaign back in 2012, I was really surprised by the sheer number of backers who were willing to talk about the project with me on the project page. They wanted to talk about the game, they wanted to talk about the way the project was going, and I thought that was really, really cool. These complete strangers were that interested and that invested in the project. And in hindsight, I went back to one of those backers, a guy who actually ended up working for Stonemaier Games, a guy named Morton, who creates the solo versions of our games now. Morton was very engaged in the project, and at one point after the project, I asked him why he thought that was. Why did he feel compelled to interact with this project? He had never done this with any other projects. And he listed a few things that I thought I'd share today that are really short, but I think they make a big difference. Morton said, one, I was transparent in my campaign. I didn't make it sound like I knew anything more than I actually did. I just told backers what was happening, the things that the thought processes I was going through. I shared the good, I shared the bad. And I shared the reasons behind my decisions. Backers seemed to respond really well to that, and it got Morton to engage in the project. Two, when I launched Viticulture on Kickstarter, it wasn't finished. I thought the game was done, but the art definitely wasn't done, and the graphic design wasn't done. But as it turned out, we did more blind playtesting during the campaign, which you shouldn't necessarily do. That was an early mistake on my part. But the game wasn't finished, and I actually recommend to creators that the game, at least a small part of the game, be just a little bit unfinished so that backers can play it, whether they print and play it, whether they just read the rules and offer you feedback, or whether they play it on Tabletopia, Tabletop Simulator. Just leave a little room for the backers to give you feedback. This is an open door for them to engage with the product itself. Three, ask for help. Morton found, one of the reasons Morton engaged in the project is that there were certain times in the project where I asked backers to do something. I asked backers to maybe share it. I asked backers to proofread the rules. I asked backers if they wanted to play test it, or very specific things. Sometimes backers are looking for some way to help, some way to participate in the project and share their passion, but they need you to tell them what to do. They need some of direction to point them in the right direction. So that really helped Morton. And last, Morton said, it helps if you are someone that backers genuinely want to help. I can't say I'm always a nice guy, but I try really hard to be welcoming and nice and inclusive to people when I interact with them online and on Kickstarter. And so this brought Morton into it. He had seen other creators who were more abrasive, who were defensive, and who were more focused on their own dream rather than sharing their passion with a bunch of other people who shared the same interest in that project. So Morton, his suggestion here is be someone that backers genuinely want to help, and backers will be more likely to engage with that person. There are lots of other ways to do this. I'll explore in the future in project updates, which is a great way to engage backers, but those are the core things that Morton, who is now one of our employees, recommended when he was back then when he was just a volunteer for Stonemaier Games. Thanks.
Hey, hello there, Crowdfund Nation. Welcome to another Super Backer, a segment where I talk about games that are coming out to Kickstarter or that I just backed. And two of my favorite hobbies are board gaming and brewing. And I've brewed my share of beers. But today we'll take a look at a game that brings both things together, board game and microbrewing. Microbrew is a small format games for 2 players. You can actually combine 2 games and make it a 4-player game, but it's basically a 2-player game that's supposed to take 45 minutes to an hour. And the idea is that there's 2 breweries that are fighting to get the most amount of customers and making them loyal to your brewery. This is a work placement game with some puzzle elements to it. So you start the game by choosing a recipe to make, and each card will give you a different style of beers. The game does an excellent job showing different styles of beers, so you can brew your lagers or different ales like stouts and IPAs, even some spicy beers. During the game, players will have to brew different styles of beers to serve it to their customers. So the more beers you brew and serve it to specific customers that like specific flavors from different countries, you'll be able to get more loyal customers. You can get points by accomplish your secret goals by having all the custom for specific countries that will be specified on your secret goal. On top of that, you're going to have a common goal that will give you more customers or points at the end of the game. So you're going to have to put all the ingredients on your copper kettle. The way you place your recipes in your copper kettle, that's where the puzzle element comes to the game. And you cannot just move them around in any way you want. So all the light malts gonna come to the top, and now all the dark malts will come down. And in order to do that, you're gonna have to match the columns inside of the copper in order to brew your beer the right way. You'll be able to take work placement actions. So the thing about this game is that once you take an action where the opponent is on, they will be able to take their worker back. And getting their workers back means that your opponent's gonna get that extra action. So you're gonna have to figure out if it's worthwhile to take that action, since you're giving that extra action to the other player. Again, the way you win the game is by serving the best beer to your customers, making them loyal to you. By the end of the game, who has the most loyal customers wins. Small games format are awesome because you can take them anywhere. You can put it on your pocket, travel around, even small boxes like the Tiny Epic can give you a lot of gameplay. And on Microbrew, you just get a small team box, but a lot of gaming on it. I'm very excited about this game. I love the theme of the game. It's not the first game to use the brewing, and there's a couple games coming out on Kickstarter that will use that brewing theme. But the idea of having that small game that it's a work placement and it does a lot and plays in 45-60 minutes, I really love that. So that is a must back for me. And if you like the idea of a small game, if you like the theme of the game, take a look. The Kickstarter is live right now. They're fully funded, and see if that's another game that is good for you. So thanks again. Hope to see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview recap. I'm Mark, and you've caught me right in the middle of working on my next Dice Tower preview video. This is Welcome to the Jungle. In this game, you are battling for territories, trying to become the ultimate kingpin of the jungle. You're going to be using weapons, you're going to be using resources in order to gain control. Welcome to the Jungle is brought to you by Coffee Cake Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and playtime ranges anywhere from 60 to 120 minutes. I'll have this preview done soon, so keep an eye out for Welcome to the Jungle. Now, these are all paid previews, and it's our hope that we can give you a real sense of each game. Next up, we have Machina Arcana. In this game, you are a band of explorers in a subterranean, underground, unknown facility no one has seen before. You're going to be dealing with all kinds of Cthulhu-based creatures in this steampunk world. A hugely story-driven game with really interesting game crafting or weapon and armor crafting items, really adding to the flavor of the game. Machina Arcana is brought to you by Adrema Games. It's for 1 to 4 players. It plays in 30 minutes, all the way up to 240 minutes, and it's for 14 and up. Next up, we have Tiny Epic Mechs. In Tiny Epic Mechs, you're taking on the role of a pilot in an arena combat set in the future where combat is now reality. And what you're doing here is using programmable movement to move across the board and gain the most victory points. But you also have amazing power suits and mechanized suit that you can jump into, which actually wraps around these item meeples, allowing you to carry all kinds of weapons and heavy armament. This game is all about destroying your opponent. Tiny Epic Mechs is brought to you by Gamelin Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and game time is anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. Next up, we have Nanty Narking from Martin Wallace. In this game, you're playing in old Victorian London, and every player has their own objective, and the game is pretty straightforward. You're going to take a card and play it and do what it says. But you never know what everyone's different objective is. You might be controlling areas, you might be doing all kinds of different things. And there's crazy events that can take place, like earthquakes and fires, all kinds of disasters. Nanty Narking is brought to you by Phalanx Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and game time ranges around 60 minutes. And lastly, we have Hero Master, an epic game of epic fails. You know, the heroes that you typically find in games, the ones that are heroic and go out on adventures. This is not them. You are the bottom of the barrel heroes, and you're trying to get the most gold. So you're going to band together with a bunch of the other reject heroes and go on a little adventure. And you're not opposed to climbing over each other to get the most gold. And in the end, that's the goal, to have the most gold. Hero Master is brought to you by The Noble Artist. It plays 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and playtime ranges from 45 to 60 minutes. Now, it's important to note that all the games you've seen here are in prototype form, so not all the components and not all the rules may be final as of yet. But if you want more information about each of the games I've mentioned here, please go check out our full previews. And if you want your game featured as a Dice Tower preview, please shoot me an email. All right, folks, I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.
All right, as we wrap up this show here, I have time for a few questions. So if you have any questions, I've already mentioned in the comments to ask them. So someone asked how the Iceland trip was. We will be doing a blog on it. It was fantastic. We went to Midgard, a small convention there, which was fantastic. We also got to go around and see some sights in Iceland, which was also, if I can repeat myself, fantastic. It was really a great time all around. The food was good, and the English, spoken English there, was better than any other country I've been to other than America itself. But that's all I really want to talk about Iceland now. Save that for my next Q&A. Maybe I'll do some more stuff there. Any other quick questions before we shut down? We want to thank all our contributors, of course, for doing great. If you come, and if you're watching us later on, if you come on live, our contributors are hanging out live. Most of them are here in the comments, so you will be able to ask them questions and stuff about something they just talked about to clarify that. This person says, I like the idea of Tom commenting on some Kickstarters, but the rest of the contributors are getting paid to advertise the games. As far as I know, and maybe I can be corrected, but none of my contributors are getting paid to advertise these games, with the exception of Mark, who does paid previews. He does paid previews, so I asked him to come in and do a summary of his paid previews on the show. All the rest of these are just games that people are talking about. There's no advertising involved whatsoever. Yes, Dice Tower Live is on tonight. That's 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I don't believe I've made the YouTube thing yet, so I need to get cranking on that and get that together. Me, Crystal, and Eric will be there tonight, so we'll see you then. Is there a way to do interactive Kickstarter on projects that launch today or day of the show? I don't know what that means. Like project? No, I don't want to do that. No. I'm really happy with the way I do it now. A burn for the UK. Okay, I wasn't burning the UK. I'm sorry. The Iceland was a place where the people spoke English better than any other country who does not have English as their first language. I'm not including UK or Canada or Australia. I might include Canada actually. But anyway, what about a monthly series where we talk about games we grade significantly different than the one who reviewed it in the video? We do that anyway. We talk about them. If you listen to Dice Tower show, that's usually the Dice Tower audio shows where I often talk about games that Z and me and Sam have played together. And if I think something different of it, I'll talk about it there. If you don't hear me talk about it there, that means I probably haven't played it. We actually play with different people. Well, I think I'm caught up on questions. So, hey, thanks for joining us live. We'll be back with crowd surfing in 2 weeks. We will, so we're going to do this live every other Wednesday. So we'll be back and talk to you then. Of course, there's other live shows. We'll have a live show tonight, Dice Tower tonight. And of course, lots of videos, a bunch of videos just went up at 1 and 2 o'clock. So you can go watch those. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel. Thanks so much for watching Crowd Surfing on the Dice Tower.